James Crumbley, father of the Oxford school shooter, was convicted earlier this month of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
The verdict came down about a month after his wife, Jennifer Crumbley, was convicted of the same charges.
So joining us now to continue this conversation is James Crumbley's attorney, Mariell Lehman of the Lehman law firm. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
So we saw that you fought really hard on behalf of James Crumbley. Ultimately, he got the same fate as his wife. Let's start with your thoughts on the outcome.
Obviously, I'm disappointed with the outcome. James and I are both disappointed with the verdict. We know that the jury had a very difficult task in front of them, but we are disappointed.
And so what's next? Does your client plan to appeal?
Well, the next step would be sentencing. As for an appeal, he has the right to appeal because he was convicted by a jury, but any decision regarding an appeal would be made by an appellate attorney.
So we talked to Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald recently, and she said too that there's so many complex parts to this case, and even though what the shooter did is just really upsetting to so many people, there's a level of sympathy even for him. Considering how complicated this case is, what led you to take it on?
I believe in the case. I believe in James. I believe that he's not guilty. I believe that he shouldn't have been charged. So it is complex. There are a lot of complex issues in the case, but I took the case on because I believe in it.
Yeah. There was some of that sympathy, but of course a lot of anger, understandably. What would you say to the victims' families who had to sit through all those trials after what they've been through?
The same thing that I've said in the past is I know that it was very difficult for them. They had immense losses, things that they can never undo, things that they can never forget. Everyone that was involved in the shooting that day obviously has experienced something that they'll never forget. And they know that I know that how serious it is for them and how real it is for them. And obviously they know that they have my sympathies.
As details emerged from the Crumbley's home after that shooting, a lot of people were very, very frustrated with those parents specifically. Can you tell us what went into the decision for him not to speak? Because a lot of people wanted to hear from both of them just to get some kind of explanation.
Well, he did kind of speak, and the jury did get to hear from him because he made statements in videos that were played for the jury during the trial. So unlike some cases where the jury never gets to hear from the individual, the jury did get to hear from him. And essentially he said in those videos exactly what he would have said to them live. So he also has the right to remain silent. But because the jury did get to hear from him in those videos, and because he has a right to remain silent, he didn't need to testify.
In light of the verdict, does he feel that that was enough, that his point was gotten across in that evidence, or does he wish he would have taken the stand at this point?
You know, I don't know that we've really ever talked about that. I know that I wouldn't have changed anything.
Something that some people criticize, people felt like his sister getting on the stand kind of fell flat. They were thinking maybe that they would hear from her in a way that he could be humanized, or we could kind of understand him as more of a person. How do you think that went, and also what was the intention of having her speak?
I guess it depends on the listener, and different people feel different ways about things like that. I personally didn't think it fell flat. It got the point across that I wanted to get across, so I was happy with that decision.
This case, as well as Jennifer's, they were unprecedented in several ways. Do you think that impacted how the trial played out?
I think so. I think anyone involved would agree that it obviously did. These were big issues. It was a big case for all three people. And for everyone involved. So I think that probably did have an impact. We've talked about the emotion, the anger, the sadness, the tragedy, all of that. We've talked about that. So we all know that doesn't come along with every case, obviously.
Is there anything that you can share with us just in terms of what James shared with you, just his thoughts on everything that happened?
No, you know, again, I don't know that we would have done anything differently. Looking back based on what we had during the trial at the time, I don't know that we would have made any different decisions.
You know, obviously we've reported, many media outlets have reported in recent weeks, the alleged threats that your client made against the prosecutor, Karen McDonald, in jail. What can you tell us about that situation?
There's been a lot of discussion about the alleged threats, and I think that it takes away from the trial and the importance of the trial and the issue, so I'm not going to make any further comments about that.
During Jennifer's trial, something that stuck out to a lot of people, she was asked if there was anything she would do differently just in general with everything that played out. Her answer was no. Do you think James would have answered that question the same way should he have taken the stand?
James did answer that question. In one of the interviews with law enforcement, he did answer that question. And in the testimony, or I'm sorry, in the video, he did say he wished that he had done things differently. So he did answer that question.
There's been a lot of comparison, of course, between James's trial and his wife's. What are the key differences, if any, between their cases? Should they be lumped together as much as they have been, maybe in conversation?
I think every case is different. And it's up to the people looking at it to decide and to make decisions about how they're different or things like that. I know that I focused on James and our case.
Looking ahead to sentencing, any thoughts there? What do you think is going to happen?
I couldn't predict. I know that I'm going to file a sentencing memorandum on behalf of James, and ultimately it's up to the judge.
All right. Any other reaction from James? You know, we saw him that day as the verdict was read. He seemed disappointed. He shook his head. Of course, he's going to be disappointed. But is there anything he said to you or that he would say to the public, to the victims' families after that verdict?
No, I think I've said everything.
All right. Well, Mariell Lehman, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.